1. At my wedding with Xavier. A girl in a white dress got drunk. Xavier frowned and told her not to make trouble. She ignored Xavier and smiled at me instead. Sister. I heard you are pregnant. Have you named the baby? I stroked my belly and answered gently. The nickname is July. July. She turned her gaze to Xavier and laughed even harder. Tears even secreted from the corners of her eyes. How can it be called July? He doesn't want July anymore. My expression froze slightly. Not understanding. In the stagnant ear. Xavier's childhood friend was the first to break the silence. Sister-in-law. My classmate is drunk and confused. I'll take her to the hotel. After they left. I couldn't help asking Xavier. With a hint of probing in my tone. Xavier. Who is she? Xavier looked at me intently. Without any abnormal expression. An old classmate. I still wanted to ask more. But he took the lead in changing the topic. Wife. The client of my company is very drunk. I'll go and take a look. Okay. I opened my mouth with difficulty and swallowed all the words I was about to ask. Somehow, looking at his panicked back as he left, I felt inexplicably uneasy. 2. When my best friend Yo-Yo came to see me. She was holding an exquisite gift box. She threw the gift box in front of me and spoke quite bluntly. Chloe. This is something left by your rival in love. Rival? In love? My heart skipped a beat and I subconsciously thought of the girl in the white dress. My face turned even paler. It's that girl who was crying so miserably just now. Yo-Yo puffed up her cheeks and rolled her eyes. She cried like that in front of someone else's groom. She's really shameless. After hearing this, I became even more uneasy. Yo-Yo comforted me by patting my shoulder and her tone was extremely certain. Don't worry. Your Xavier is famous for spoiling his wife. He can't do anything wrong to you. Yes. Xavier spoils me to the core. Everyone says I'm married for love. I shouldn't doubt him. I let out a long breath and didn't plan to look for trouble for myself. While chatting with Yo-Yo, I unconsciously played with the gift box. Suddenly, the name on the gift box caught my attention. I looked at it carefully. So her name is Joy. Wait. Joy. July. The string in my mind suddenly exploded. I opened my mouth in a daze and my straight back couldn't hold up and slumped down. My world suddenly turned pitch black. Chloe. Why are you crying? Don't scare me. Where is Xavier? Help me find Xavier back. I want to see him. I want to see him. Okay. Okay. I'll find Xavier. You are still pregnant. You can't cry anymore. 3. I tremblingly handed my phone to Yo-Yo. I was eager to know where Xavier was. My voice was shaking uncontrollably. I want to video call him. Yo-Yo nodded. As soon as the video call was made, it was hung up by Xavier. I tightly held the hem of my veil. I looked up, but tears couldn't be controlled and fell down. Call him again for me. After the video call was hung up countless times, Xavier finally made a voice call. His voice was a little hoarse. Wife? What's wrong with you? Where are you? At this time, I couldn't hold back my emotions anymore. I'm Matt. He hesitated for half a second and changed the topic. I'll be back soon. I almost hysterically asked. Are you at the hotel? Did you go to find her? Right? I couldn't say anymore. I helplessly leaned against the corner, with a heavy nasal tone. Xavier. Tell me. Who is Joy? On the other end of the phone. There was no sound immediately. I covered my heart and cried wildly. I cried so much that I couldn't catch my breath. In the end, there were no more tears. I feel so pathetic. On my wedding day, my husband's white moonlight came. He left me and went to the hotel with her. Even more pathetic is that I have been with Xavier for 3 years. The names of all his social media accounts are July. Even after I got pregnant and asked him, what should we name our baby? Without thinking, he blurted out, July. Although I had wondered what special meaning this month had for him. But I respected him, and didn't ask further. Only today did I know that his white moonlight is called joy. How can he use my child to commemorate their love with a clear conscience? What am I in Xavier's heart? What do my 3 years count for? I don't understand. His heart is not completely free. Why is he with me again? What did I do wrong? Half an hour later, Xavier rushed into the box sweating profusely. He asked Yo to go out and wanted to talk to me alone. What do you want to talk about? I lifted a pair of red eyes and looked at him blankly. He squatted in front of me without any emotion. Joy is my ex-girlfriend. How long were you together? 7 years. How long has it been since you broke up? 4 years. Do you still love her? Xavier didn't make a sound. He have tacitly consented. I just wanted to laugh. The more I laughed, the more tears there were. Why are the two of you doing this? She can't let go of you and comes to disrupt my wedding. You can't let go of her and leave me to find her. Xavier, what on earth have I done wrong? Why should I be victimized by the two of you like this? I cried and tore at my veil. Can you stop making a fuss? Xavier pressed his lips together and held my hand. Nothing happened between me and her. I just went to see her. I stared at him with wide eyes. I didn't know how he could say such words so matter-of-factly. Will you leave me and go to her every time she cries in the future? I asked hysterically. Xavier was silent again. I don't know how long it took before I heard his voice. I will marry you. Just pretend this never happened. My vision went black. It was like a thunderbolt had fallen from above. There was a stabbing pain. And then a huge anger welled up inside me. Does he think the wedding is a gift to me? I don't care. I really don't care. I staggered backward and fell against the wall. My face was ashen. And I was sweating all over. The baby in my belly seemed to feel my pain. He moved a little bit. But I was in so much pain that it was unbearable. I covered my stomach. Full of sadness. Baby. This is your first fetal movement. Why at such a moment? 5. Xavier knitted his brows and reached out to help me up. I uncontrollably screamed at him. Don't touch me. You're dirty. Don't be like this. Okay? Xavier stared at my belly and sighed. I didn't mean to break up with you. Really? Hearing this made me sick. He's so disgusting. If I hadn't met him, I would have had a clean love. I could have been happy. He ruined me. I grabbed my phone and threw it at him recklessly. The wedding is off. Let's get a divorce right now. Xavier was stunned. After a few seconds, his face clearly turned cold. And his words were full of sarcasm. You come from a single-parent family. Do you think your mother will agree to you getting a divorce while pregnant? I would never have thought that Xavier would use my family to hurt me. My heart seemed to be cut into thousands of pieces by a sharp knife. Each piece was being gnawed at, eroded, and pierced. I hugged my head and leaned against the wall, crying loudly until my throat was hoarse. I didn't even notice when he left. 6. After that day, Xavier and I were completely in a cold war. I moved back to my own home. As Xavier said, I grew up in a single-parent family. Before my father passed away, my mother had been living in a marriage like Widwood. So she couldn't empathize with me. When Xavier came here to pick me up, she couldn't wait for me to go back quickly. Xavier has given you a way out. You should take it. My mother kept urging me. Don't hide in the room. Come out quickly. I almost begged her. Mom, please ask him to leave. You're already pregnant. What are you still making a fuss about? You have to swallow this breath. I can't swallow it. I just can't. Marriage is about turning a blind eye. She lifted the quilt and looked at my red eyes. Her tone softened a little. Besides, Xavier didn't cheat. It's not like that. Emotional cheating is even more terrifying than physical cheating. My tone was extremely sad. We've been together for 3 years. He lies beside me thinking about another woman. What am I? You're just overthinking. Let me tell you first. No matter how you fight, don't even think about divorce. I can't afford to lose face. This was the first time I disobeyed her. I must divorce. My mother looked at me with a look of resentment for not being able to make steel. In the end, it's still your fault for being useless. If you were perfect in every way, I don't believe Xavier would still be thinking about his ex. Mom. I interrupted her in despair and covered my ears. I didn't want to hear any sound. I beg you to stop. I beg you. Endless grievances quickly spread in my heart. So much so that my eyes couldn't hold back tears. It's not me who is wrong. Why are you blaming me? Does the world have to be so absurd? 7. I was forced to go back home with Xavier. In our wedding room. He handed me his phone. Look for yourself. After I broke up with her, we haven't contacted each other anymore. I didn't take it and sneered. Does this mean you don't have her in your heart? Xavier didn't answer. He clenched his phone. The knuckles of his fingers protruded bony and turned white from exertion. After a long while, he opened it with a composed face and searched for Joy's name. The latest message. In the classmate group. He said, "I'm getting married." His classmates asked knowingly, "Why didn't Joy tell us?" He said, "It's not with her." The group fell silent. After a few minutes, Joy him, "Congratulations. I definitely can't miss your wedding." He didn't refuse. He also said okay. On our wedding day, Joy came, wearing a white gauze skirt. She sat in the audience and looked exactly like a bride. Xavier, who was standing next to me taking the oath, choked up several times and could hardly hold back his emotions. At that time, my best friend envied me. "Chloe, you really married the right person." When taking the wedding oath, Xavier actually cried. He is so affectionate. Now looking back, I can't help but want to laugh. Xavier's acting skills are really superb. Everyone thought that when he was taking the oath, what was on his mind was the years spent with me. But clearly he was worried about Joy, who was crying into tears sitting below. "See clearly?" I said. "There is nothing between me and Joy." Xavier's voice pulled me back to reality. I closed my eyes, just as I was about to tell him to get lost. His childhood friend's call came in. On the other end of the phone, his childhood friend's voice was very urgent. "Xavier, Joy is in the hospital." Xavier's body stiffened. He looked at me with complicated eyes and said, "I'll go out for a while. We haven't divorced yet." How can he blatantly meet another woman? I grabbed his arm like crazy. "Xavier, I forbid you to go." Xavier irritably pinched the space between his eyebrows. His tone was reproachful. "Can you be as sensible as before? Why have you become so unreasonable?" I turned around and pushed open the door and told him to get lost. 8. As soon as Xavier left, I received a strange text message. "Chloe, Xavier doesn't love you. Give him back to me. Watching him get married is more painful than death for me." To be honest, before receiving this text message, I had never blamed Joy. I only hated Xavier. I hated him for being cruel and building his love for one woman on the pain of another woman. But now, looking at the text message in front of me, I find that the two of them are of the same kind. Equally disgusting and equally selfish. Since the two of them love each other so much, they should be locked together and not come out to harm others. However, before Xavier and I are officially divorced, Joy is an unseemly mistress. A mistress has no right to be arrogant in front of the original wife. Enduring my disgust, I taunted her. "Joy, what were you doing before? Do you like other people's husbands so much?" She quickly replied, "Xavier and I have been in love for 7 years. In terms of being a mistress, I am not on the list. Moreover, the one who is not loved is the mistress." According to her train of thought, does she think that I destroyed her 7-year relationship with Xavier? Is she so shameless? Originally, I didn't believe that a person could be so shameless, until she bombarded me with text messages. "Don't hold on to Xavier anymore. Do you believe that as long as I want him, he will appear by my side at any time?" She continuously provoked. Chloe. Divorce him. You know very well that you can't compete with me. But I never intended to compete with her. When I knew that there was another woman in Xavier's heart, only one thought remained deep inside me: divorce and divide the property. A man who has been soiled. If she wants him, I'll let him go. 9. After putting Joy on the blacklist, I called my best friend Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo, can you accompany me to the hospital? There's something wrong with your tone? Are you sick? I'll go to your house to find you. Yo-Yo rushed to my house without stopping. In less than 20 minutes, she arrived. The moment I opened the door, she was obviously startled. What's wrong with you during this time? How did you make yourself like this? I told her the whole story about Xavier and Joy. There was not a trace of fluctuation on my face. My tone was so natural, as if I was telling someone else's story. I just didn't expect this story to be so tragic, but it made Yo-Yo cry on the spot. She told me in a crying voice, Chloe, it's Xavier and that bitch who are wrong. They will be punished. You are not wrong at all. Your good days are still ahead. Originally, I didn't want to cry anymore. But as soon as Yo-Yo comforted me, I couldn't help crying again. I covered my face with a tissue. My nasal voice was very heavy. I have made an appointment for the afternoon. It's time to go to the hospital. Yo-Yo gently touched my bulging belly and was almost crying. The baby is already 5 months old. My heart ached like a knife. Tears fell on my belly one by one. I'm sorry, baby. I'm really sorry. Mom can't keep you. 10. When we arrived at the hospital, after finishing all the examinations, the doctor hesitated for a long time and then asked me, the baby is already formed. Are you sure you don't want it? Afraid that the baby would be sad if it heard. I whispered a soft The doctor nodded and asked me to lie on the cold operating table. The steel needle was slowly pushed into my coccyx. After one injection, my consciousness gradually became blurred. When I woke up again, I was in the ward. Yo-Yo told me that the baby had been taken out, although I had already mentally prepared myself. But touching my already flattened belly, I still felt as if a big hole had been dug in my body. The cold wind kept blowing in, making me shiver all over. My baby, who was 5 months old, was taken away. How could I not feel pain? It was as if I had lost a life. I didn't even dare to think about it anymore. As soon as I thought of the baby, my heart was like being pierced by a needle. The pain made my tears fly. But baby, Mom can't give you happiness. Don't blame Mom. Mom hopes you will go to a happy family in your next life. Be spoiled and loved. Have no worries all your life. Live a long life. To be 100 years old. 11. When Yo-Yo handed me the phone, she said, when you were having the operation, Xavier called several times. I didn't answer. I nodded and put Xavier on the blacklist with a dead heart. I leaned on the hospital bed and my consciousness gradually became clear. The baby is not only mine. Xavier also has a share. The baby is gone. How can I hide it from him? I called Yo-Yo feebly. Help me put the surgical list, medical record book, together and give it to Xavier. Just tell him that I returned his July to him. Yo-Yo agreed. After hesitating for a long time, she finally made up her mind and asked me, do you want to put the baby in it too? My heart tightened and tears rolled down. I just want Xavier to have no afterlife. My baby. I hope he can rest in peace. 12. After Xavier received my gift box, it is said that he lay at home for a week. A week later, he came to Yo-Yo's house to settle scores with me. Yo-Yo pushed open the door and let him look at me and settle the score slowly. He walked in aggressively, just by glancing at me lightly. His fierce expression froze instantly. Looking at me, who was as weak as a thread, he opened his mouth but couldn't say a word for a long time. He kept taking deep breaths. His masseter muscle was constantly moving. After calming down for a while, he finally spoke. But his voice was a little shaky. Do you hate me so much? You would rather make yourself like this than give birth to a child for me? I nodded calmly without any extra words. Yes. After hearing this, he turned his face and stopped looking at me. I remember Xavier likes children very much. The day he knew I was pregnant, he picked me up from the ground and spun me around several times. He, who never touches housework, would also make nutritious meals for me according to the recipe. In the early stage of pregnancy, I always couldn't help vomiting. It was he who searched for various folk remedies on the internet and accompanied me to try one by one until I felt better. Later, as my pregnancy progressed and my belly gradually bulged, he would accompany me for a walk every day because he heard that taking more walks would make giving birth less painful. I laughed at him. How could a man like you know these things? He said, Wife, if you are willing to give birth to a child for me, it means you love me to the extreme. I will definitely treat you well. He also said, Wife, I will treat you well for a lifetime. Unexpectedly, a lifetime is so short. With Joy's appearance, this lifetime is over. Thinking of these, my eyes are a little sore. Just a little sore. I know very well that these are all lies he wove for me. No matter how beautiful a lie is, it can't become true. He has his Joy, and I also have my own way to go. I said casually, Tomorrow, I will send you the divorce agreement. He turned his head incredulously. There was a hint of anger between his eyebrows. Are you so impatient? I didn't say a word and chose to remain silent. He laughed angrily. His hand was a little shaky and his voice was also shaky. Are you so heartless? Saying you don't love anymore just like that. It's rare to see him show such an expression. I also smiled. Because my 3 views don't allow me to find a man in the garbage dump. After saying this sentence, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Xavier froze on the spot. I glanced at Yo-Yo. She understood immediately and hurriedly opened the door and drove him away. 13. Yo-Yo was afraid that Xavier would affect my mood. She surrounded me like a little sparrow, chirping to distract me. Chloe, I need to confess something to you. What's wrong? That day when you asked me to send a gift box to Xavier, although I didn't put the baby in it, I printed a bunch of baby photos and stuffed them in. When Xavier opened the gift box, he was stunned. Yo-Yo poked her head out and looked at me. Chloe, you won't blame me, will you? He is also the baby's father. It's nothing for him to see the baby. That's true. But I'm afraid he will make things difficult for you during the divorce. I should have endured it if I had known earlier. I was more calm than I imagined. I will find a way to get evidence to prove that he is cheating. He can't make things difficult for me. Yo-Yo tilted her head and looked at me. Suddenly she smiled and said slowly, Chloe, I think you have changed. I know that when dealing with a scumbag, you can only become stronger and stronger. That's good. That's good. Although she said it was good, her eyes were getting red. Perhaps because I have experienced too many things during this period. I think more thoroughly than ever. I patted her on the shoulder and smiled at her. Don't be sad for me. Compared with being a flower in a greenhouse, I prefer to face the wind and rain and control my own life. 14. A week later, I sent the divorce agreement checked repeatedly by the lawyer to Xavier. I waited for several days in a row, but still didn't receive the signed agreement from him. I had to take him out of the blacklist. Found his phone number and dialed it. In just 1 second, he answered. Wife. Unexpectedly, he would still call me like this. I was in a trance for half a second and frowned. Xavier, is there any problem with the divorce agreement? No. When will you sign it? Some other day. When is some other day? At the other end of the phone, the sound of a lighter rang. After about half a minute, he spoke slowly. Do you really have to divorce? I don't understand what he is thinking. We have no child and no entanglement. What is he hesitating about? My tone was not friendly. Asking this question too many times is very annoying. Xavier sneered and gritted his teeth. Okay. 15. Before I knew it, another week passed. Xavier's signed divorce agreement still hadn't been sent to me. On the other side, Joy kept her asking me to leave Xavier as soon as possible. If she insists on asking for trouble, I don't need to spoil her. I said. I sent the divorce agreement to Xavier last month, but he doesn't want to sign it. What should I do? Joy didn't believe it. She wrote a short essay to prove Xavier's love for her. I've been with Xavier since college. The year we graduated was the toughest time for us. I squeezed into a cramped rental room with him, eating a bowl of fried rice and drinking hot water. I didn't feel bitter at all. He is extremely good to me. He spoils me just like spoiling a child. Every festival, he would prepare a bouquet of flowers for me. There is never a lack of gifts. After living together with him, before I wake up in the morning, he has already prepared breakfast and waits for me to get up and eat. At night, he prepares hot water for me to soak my feet. He takes on all the housework. All his friends know of my existence because all his social media accounts are named July. July is equivalent to Joy. He also told his friends that if the person he marries in the future is not Joy, they don't need to come. Even my parents said that I've found the best man in the world. If we hadn't broken up, how could it be your turn to marry him? He doesn't love you. Let him go. After reading it, I found that there wasn't the slightest trace of anger in my heart. I even felt sorry for her. She thought the love Xavier gave her was unique. But she didn't know. Xavier had done these things for me too. Wasn't it because he was so good to me that I was willing to marry Xavier in the first place? I didn't want to vent my anger on her anymore. My tone could be considered polite. Okay. I'll go find him in person today to negotiate a divorce. Less than a second after the text message was sent, my phone rang immediately. I answered. On the other end of the phone was Joy's shrill voice. Chloe. Are you cheap? Don't go and seduce Xavier. You are not allowed to see him. If he doesn't sign the agreement without me going, you will always be in the shadows. I don't believe he won't sign. It must be that you've played some trick. What on earth have you done to him? Joy was somewhat hysterical. I deliberately taunted her. If you have time to come and go crazy at me, you might as well go to him. Didn't you say he loves you very much? If he loves you, how could he let you be a mistress? After Joy heard this, she immediately hung up the phone. I sighed. Fortunately, I had an epiphany in time and didn't become like her. 16. After recuperating at Yo-Yo's house for more than a month, I returned to the company. Perhaps the blow of marriage was too great for me. I no longer expected love but threw myself into work wholeheartedly. My colleagues found it strange and couldn't help asking, Chloe, why are you always working overtime recently? Does your husband be willing to part with let you work so hard? My pen paused. I looked up and answered frankly. I am suing for divorce. Colleagues around quickly gathered around. Everyone looked surprised. You two were so good all the time. You're divorcing just like that? I don't understand any profound principles. I only know that when you can't love anymore, let it go. Internal conflict will only destroy yourself. Not wanting to talk too much about my private life with my colleagues, I could only smile and take the opportunity to change the topic. My colleague sighed a few times and didn't ask anymore. After getting off work in the evening, a colleague ran towards me with a gossipy look. Chloe, your husband is waiting for you downstairs in the company. I didn't want to see him. I walked to the left window, pushed open the window. The sky was a dull yellow, against the light of the setting sun. I couldn't see his expression. I could only see that his head was slightly drooping and his body was slightly hunched down. There was an indescribable loneliness. I took a photo casually and sent it to Joy. Even without extra words, Joy was so angry that she was like an angry cat. Because in the next second, I saw Xavier answering the phone. They didn't know what they said. Xavier held up his phone high as if he was about to throw it on the ground. In a flash, he raised his head and looked in my direction. Our eyes met. He stood there stupidly, tense like a fully drawn bow. I curled up my lips and smiled brightly at him. 17. Half an hour later, I received a message from Joy, with pictures and text. The text: Chloe, don't be complacent. I told you long ago that as long as I need him, he can abandon everything and come to me. In the picture, Xavier is leaning against the window, with a cigarette in his mouth. The smoke is so thick that his expression can't be seen. When we were just together, he also loved smoking very much. After I got pregnant for the baby, he took the initiative to quit smoking. He said that he developed a smoking addiction when his life was gloomy and without light. He also said that this time when he quits, no matter how difficult it is in the future, he will not smoke again. I pulled back my thoughts and deliberately replied to her, "Is this something to show off? He didn't sleep with you." Joy was so angry by me that she was speechless. A few days later, when Xavier's company held an annual meeting, Joy sent me another photo. He brought me to the company's annual meeting. We made up. Oh. Speaking of Xavier's successful entrepreneurship, I helped a lot. 3 years ago, in the early stage of Xavier's entrepreneurship, there was a difficult capital turnover. I borrowed 1 million from Xavier to help him through the difficult time. Later, during the company's development stage, I also accompanied him to socialize at the wine table. All the company employees know that Xavier's wife is me. When seeing Joy blatantly holding Xavier's arm and appearing at the annual meeting, it's inevitable that people will gossip. At this time, the vice president of the company deliberately came to chat with me. "Sister-in-law, why haven't we seen you at the company recently?" "I've been a bit busy recently." I pretended not to know and answered, "So, sister-in-law, I saw that there is a woman following General Manager Xavier. I don't know if she is his sister." "What woman? Can you send it to me? This is not appropriate. I'm afraid General Manager Xavier will blame me if he knows." "Don't worry. I will definitely not tell him." After hesitating for a long time, Vice President Victor finally sent me a group photo of Xavier and Joy. "Is there more?" "Yee-hoo-ah." Vice President Victor took several pictures in succession. In the first photo, Joy put her arm around Xavier's neck and took a selfie with him intimately. Xavier's eyebrows twitched slightly. He seemed to have drunk too much. In the second photo, Joy sat on Xavier's lap. In the third photo, Joy fell into his arms. Very good. It's intimate enough. 18. I didn't expect Joy to be so crazy. She sent me a photo of a condom. Who said Xavier wouldn't touch me? Didn't he touch me now? This photo is so dirty that I can't open my eyes. After a long pause, I asked, "Just based on this picture, why should I believe this is Xavier?" Soon, a photo of the upper body was sent from the other side. Afraid that she would withdraw it, I quickly saved it. In the photo, Xavier's eyes were closed tightly. Joy's fair hand was pressed against his lips. The atmosphere was overly ambiguous. Very good. This is exactly the evidence of infidelity I want. I printed all the photos given to me by Joy and Vice President Victor in 3 copies. One was sent to Xavier. One was sent to the court. And the other was sent to my mother. I sued Xavier for marital infidelity in court and demanded that he leave the house with nothing. The court accepted it quickly. On the day Xavier received the court summons, he contacted me with his childhood friend's mobile phone. "I've seen the photos. Since we were husband and wife once, we don't need to make it so ugly. If you want a divorce, I agree." "Well, how is the property divided?" "The bank card and the wedding house are for you. We split the company's equity in half." "No. I want the equity." He looked like an eggplant beaten by frost, without any vitality. He agreed to whatever I said. "Okay. Consider it as my compensation for you and the baby." Immediately, I hung up the phone. A week later, I officially divorced Xavier, after he transferred the equity to me. The next day, I sold the equity to Vice President Victor. In the company, Vice President Victor and Xavier have equal shares. They confront each other and check and balance each other. And the equity in my hand can change the owner of the company anytime. Holding this in my hand is equivalent to holding Xavier's painstaking efforts. As long as Xavier makes me unhappy, I will give it to Vice President Victor. From then on, Xavier no longer dared to provoke me. 19. I don't know why. I have already divorced. But Joy still haunts me. She scolded me for no reason. Chloe, you are really shameless. Why did you take so much property from Xavier? I said. Xavier is willing to give it. She was extremely angry. Xavier gave money because he felt guilty about his dead child. Not because he has feelings for you. It's all because you are so vicious and used the child's photo to scare him. I replied with the last sentence. It's not me who is vicious. But you too. I put her on the blacklist again. Formal farewell to the messy past. Finally. It's quiet. When Yo-Yo came to my villa as a guest, she revealed a secret to me. After you divorced Xavier. Xavier called me. What did he want from you? Yo-Yo propped her chin and recalled. He said. After Chloe had an abortion, and I went to see her. When she was lying on the bed. She was like a soulless shell. Like she could die at any time. At that moment, I was really scared. I won't contact her anymore. Please help me take good care of her. Yo-Yo scolded him. You are so unlucky. Late affection is cheaper than grass. Stay away from us as far as possible, and don't bother us anymore. After listening, I sighed and smiled. Sure enough. As the saying goes, what you can't get is always in turmoil. One day, I met Xavier's childhood friend on the road. He exchanged greetings with me, sister-in-law. Joy didn't marry Xavier. Joy is very troublesome. As long as Xavier doesn't obey her, she cuts her wrists. Xavier is scared. I didn't want to listen to anything else he said later. I swept a cold glance over. What does this have to do with me? Don't bother me. In this life, let them torture each other. I am happy alone. Epilogue. Since I had a big fight with my mother last time, I haven't been home anymore. Divorce is not a small matter. I should tell her after all. That Sunday, I went back. After looking around at home, she didn't seem to be at home. I had to ask the neighbor, Auntie, do you know where my mother has gone? The aunt pointed ahead and said, Go and look on the street. She must be selling oranges there. I couldn't help frowning. What is an old lady doing selling oranges in winter? I hurried to the street. At the corner, I saw my mother arguing with a strong man while holding oranges. You young man. You ate too. How can you not buy them? What's wrong with eating a few of yours? I don't want to buy them, so I won't. Don't play moral kidnapping and forced buying and selling on me. My mother grabbed the corner of his clothes and shouted loudly, How can you bully an old person? I think you old lady is crazy about being poor. Having eaten 2 of your oranges. Are you still going on and on? Seeing that the strong man was about to push my mother, I quickly ran over and stopped him. If you have anything, come at me. Don't touch my mother. The strong man met my cold eyes and left, grumbling. My mother was still complaining nonstop there. Nowadays, young people are just unqualified. They don't buy things and still eat others. That's enough. As an old person, why are you quarreling with young people? Can your body stand being pushed by others? If I hadn't come early, maybe the next time I see you will be in the hospital. My mother lowered her head and didn't say a word. She picked up the oranges that were knocked over by the strong man one by one, wiped them on her body, and then put them back in the basket. Looking at her frozen red hands, I was even more furious. It's so cold today. Why don't you stay at home properly and come out to sell these crappy oranges? Her hand paused and she murmured to herself, I want to earn money. What money are you earning? Didn't I give you money to spend usually? She looked up at me and said, You are divorced and have no one to rely on. No one knows what will happen in the future. I have to save more money for you. I have suffered for most of my life. I know how difficult it is to live alone. A sharp pain hit my heart and tears slowly rolled down. She is really a stubborn little old lady. She stubbornly thinks that divorce is a hard and bad thing. In fact, divorce is not the antonym of marriage. Marriage is for happiness. So is divorce.